ha, we have yo yo ha 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 we have we got you what you 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 we have, we got you one 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 you we have. Ganahillo, 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 ganahillo. Oweya, oweya, yo oweya, 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 yo oweya.
You know, when you send somebody from your home to get their food for you, that's an important mission because there are certain things that you like that's going to be coming back to you. So you want to make sure that you send them, and when you send them, that they will be encouraged. They're feeling good about their mission. So we want to make sure that you give them the strongest support that they need so that they know that you are actually just behind them and supporting them. So we'll review some of that song that was sung. And I want to hear just how strong you can support these men on their mission. And it's simple words, and we'll give you the words to say. The strength of that words depends on the strength of your encouragement. So I know that if you were out in the playground, we could hear you from here. So I expect to be able to hear you. Maybe we can raise this roof up a little bit. It's very simple. The first part is all you need to do is say the word heat. If you can say that word heat, that's it. That comes from within here. You've got to understand that the balance of your wind too is very important. You bring it way back, and you need to pull your shoulders back so you can get that and send it out. And that's the very first thing that you need to know about if you're going to speak, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to sing. You've got to make sure that you've got a lot of room to expand and send out that word. That's important, because what comes from in here is your honor and your strength. So we want to hear how strong you are and how strong of encouragement you can give to these men that's leaving, that's going to be giving you something in return to bring back to you. So that's that first part we'll sing. So I'll ask you to sing that part as I say, wee-oh, hickey, wee-oh, hickey, wee-oh, hickey, wee-oh, hickey. Weo, hey, weo, hey, weo, hey, weo, hey, weo, hey, weo, hey, weo, hey. Come in there, but somehow some cereal, maybe you're walking out, you already had something to eat. Breakfast. Maybe you're scrunching some bacon and eggs in there. Try and push it past that. Push it right out. Pull your shoulders back and sing it. Push it right out. Weo, hey, 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 weo, hey. Sounds better. Sounds good. Now you're starting to get some of that stuff out. Now the next one is when you send people on that path where you want them to come back. We know that's going to be a long path, but we hope that path is a long circle. So that's what we're going to sing this time. It's called Yoha. Can you say Yoha? Yoha. That's your part. Yoha. 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 When they're here, you sing that. They make sure that they're going to go on that journey, but they're also come back. That's what you want them to do. Just like today, maybe you give somebody $5 to get you a Coke and hamburger. You want to make sure it comes back, right? Well, that's why you got to sing that loud. So I got to hear you. You want to make sure it comes back. Yoha! 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 Good. They will come back. But we also know that we want to make sure it's going to be a long path, or maybe a short path. In our language, we say hahe could be from here to there. But if we say from here to the next school, hahe, it's a little bit longer. But from where I live in Oneida, it's 25 miles southwest of here, I would say hahe. That's how far I live. So when we say that part, we don't know how long that journey may be. That journey may be from here to there, and they can come right back. That journey may be from here to there, about a week. Maybe it's a month, but we don't know. So that's the part that we're going to sing next. Just ha-hey, 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 ha-hey. Good one. So let's review those three parts. See if you remember those three parts. There's your homework now. You got to know and remember those songs. Weo! Hey! 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 Yoha! 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 Ha-hey! 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 Good one. No, that's just a little part of that story. Okay, the other part is now you're going to have to use these things. When you listen to those songs, you were able to repeat it just like that. Remember it. These are the most important tools you need to use in the rest of your life. And these are the things that we had to learn to listen to our grandmothers and grandfathers. All we had to learn. That song was just a small part of what we had to do as nations. As people. So we're going to ask you to listen for a little bit for what we call our story. It's not going to be his story, it's going to be our story. Okay? Now there's some things that you may have heard about us that maybe we're John Wayne Indians and one gun, bang, shot everybody and 60 Indians fell over and died, right? That's what the Indians are. The red man. We're here to tell you about our story, who we are. First of all, we're human beings that has a very strong sense of trying to keep our holistic being together. We like to keep our spirit and our emotions and our physical needs together. And all these things that we've done this morning to give acknowledgement to the creation was that we don't forget what helps us with our ongoing survival. To give thanks to one another and to give greetings to one another, to acknowledge everyone in our family, from the babies that aren't here yet to the oldest grandmother and grandfather. He was always thinking of everybody. And we must look at today's society. Can we see that today, that we are united as that way, as complete families? We must ask ourselves where we have to lead ourselves as people. This has nothing to do with whether I'm from a certain direction or you're from someplace else. We all share this common need to survive as people. So we're going to be sharing today our story. There are some things that you're seeing here that perhaps you may not understand. These are the two things that we use for the songs. This is representing of the male chorus. And in the songs, some of them start out like this. This is you. Before you came here to this world, you learn and walk on this earth who you're going to be. That was the beginning of your grandmother's and your grandfather's counseling, preparing you to send you to where you're going to go. And there were 4 parts on this turtle. And you became who you are today. And when your life started, that's when the song goes like this. This is what we sing about, the creation story. This is your rhythm. And you know that all songs have different rhythms because of different times. It's a slow dance, but sometimes we speed up. Things are happening. And then sometimes there's even more. There's a faster beat. There's something else happening in our lives. So that's what they talk about. They hear the seed, and they hear the function of life. This is the male chorus. Here's another chorus that is one of the most greatest teachers I ever heard of, the turtle rattle. This is used in conjunction with that because this represents the female chorus. This represents the earth and water. That body and water represents the woman. So we found the best representative of that teacher is the turtle. And a turtle is something that we just don't keep in a terrarium. Or we get lucky, we go to some pond and some roadside thing and see a turtle. They teach us many things. On a snapping turtle, you will notice down here that there are 13 segments on its back, 13 large segments. Those are the 13 natural moons that exist on this world. Although on a calendar they tell us there's 12 moons. But if you take that calendar down on one side and count 28 days, you will notice that there's a month left over. There are 13 natural moons. When you go home to your mother, ask her how many weeks it took for you to be born. And all those total weeks, it will take 10 moons. 10 moons for you to be born. And the rest of that 3 moons goes across here to enter the earth. On the other side of this turtle, we have 28 segments. That talks about the 28 days that is on each cycle. We like to point this to the east, and we start off with these colors, the white and the purple. The white and purple that we have talks about and is used in our wampums, used in our agreements, because when you were born with the most powerful innocence of your spirit and of your physical body. If you were to take yourself back today to that time when you were born, you would not know racism. You would not know hate. All these things you would only know of how you are being with the other beings within a big circle. So when we go to our ceremonies and do these things, we try to bring ourselves back to that very first part of that beginning of life when we had that innocence of being able to look at one another in all things in a free way, in a good way. So that white and purple is very important to us, and we always use that in any agreements. We had that and used that with your agreements with your ancestors that we met here 500 years ago. We use that on those agreements. And the different colors will change. And the colors will change and give you who you are. And each color represents something. They tell us that from the east, the yellow man comes from that direction. He comes with the teachings of the winds. And that's what we use today to bring out that song. It's very important. It's a very important part of us to learn the winds and the proper way to motivate our movement. On the west, we say that color black of people come from that direction. We have a name for them. We call them Lagihunjas. Lagihunjas talks about the earth people. If you ever go to a forest, you will see in that forest underneath all those leaves, the richest of soil, the strongest of that soil. That's how we see in the black man. He comes with the teaching of the water. It wasn't very long ago that the invention of plasma, blood transfusions and all that was brought in from that direction, from the west. It was their people, because their people bring the teachings of the water. The red, they say it's our people from the south. It's people that are here today, singing for you today. Our teachings come from the earth. We have to learn the earth. This is the reason I'm walking this way today. Talk about the ceremony. Talk about our dances as we go around this way. This is in honor of the life-giving forces. That's why we go around this way. Every time we dance this way is to give an honor and ceremony to whatever it is that's on earth that helps with our existence. And finally, we come to this color here. This represents people from the north. And they are the people that we had met 500 years ago, this color here. They came with the teachings of the fire. We see those teachings all over the place, the fire. So what we have to do is understand that there are 4 elements here: earth, wind, and fire, and water. All those are important to our survival. Those are the teachings that is hidden here that we have to learn. And the turtle, with its hard shell, it's like what pulls up our buildings, what pulls us up, that hard upper crust of the earth. So every time you see the turtle in its shell, it will remind you of the earth. But you know, if you're able to see inside the earth, it will bring you a soft living being that's gentle, that's always giving life. As we are entering winter here, some other part of the world is experiencing spring. They're just starting life. So there's life happening on Mother Earth all the time. The 4 directions here is what we talked about. All those 4 directions are very important to our culture. And you'll notice that your thumb is not lined up with it, but it's different. It's off to the side. In our language, we call it muska. Muska means one side, off to one side. Now, my understanding of putting all this together is very simply understood by if you hold your hands straight up like that and hold these 3 fingers straight and try to bend that first one into the center and touch your palm. Touch your palm. Keep your fingers straight and try and do that. And if it hurts a little bit, push it more, push it harder. But keep your fingers straight and try and touch that center. Experience that hurt, feel that hurt. I'll pull it all together with one. It's so easy. That feels so good. There is no pain. There is no struggle. So the palm represents the whole fire that comes from within here. These fingers, we call it hosnumpsa. Hosnumpsa. What's able to grab what's going to take care of you and put it here in your fire. Would you like to drink poison and put it in your body? Well, of course, that you know that that's something that you wouldn't grab and put it into here. So this osnumsa means that. It always grabs something that will take care of your body. When you're young, you need to drink milk. When you get older, you need to drink other herbal teas. can't drink the milk no more. So when you're young, you can drink milk. So this will teach and will also bring you the things that's good for your body. And they'll also all come together like this. But if you try to do it as an individual and go like that, it's hard, it hurts, there's pains, and there's struggle. Very lonely. It's hard to do it. So that's what we have learned from the unity of teachings from the turtle. And it's very respected teachings that we have because this respects the life-giving forces. It's very important to us that we understand that. She represents the circles. We cannot forget the things that we do. And as we had come together today, one of the first things that we would have done was to put this together. Assume part of the pipe represents the grandfathers. This long extension of this wooden part is the grandmother. This was always used by our peoples to smoke the pipe. And is to put the forces of our grandmothers and our grandfathers, what we had to learn from them, to put it together. This is the symbolic gesture that we do, that the things we're going to do to talk about and to exchange with would be to use the knowledge of our grandfathers, the knowledge of our grandmothers, and put that together and to represent that in our meeting. So there are many things that you see because of the way we behave and interact today. It's only on a level of just what we see. We don't see the other part. There's another part of you that sometimes you don't see. You can see your physical body, and maybe sometimes you're too busy worrying about how it looks. You forget another part that's important to you, your spiritual partner. And you forget that sometimes there are things that happen that we don't understand, depressions, and many things we do for our body is because we don't understand ourselves. For the grandmothers and the grandfathers, we're always brought together to remind us all these teachings on earth, water, wind, and fire. Very important to our survival. We need it all, put it together. And when we put those ingredients in here, it comes from the earth. We know these are the ingredients that we all need to take in. There are many things that you still eat today that comes from the earth. In its raw form, that's probably what we smoke. But what do we smoke together today? Is it Coca-Cola, Big Mac, cheeseburger with fries, curly fries? Is that what we smoke together today? All this processed stuff? We need to ask ourselves what we are doing for our bodies today. Why did we do it this way? What was in it? The most naturalist of forms. These are the things that we have put together. And in a little while, is this the same group? This maybe
It's actually this group and some other classes.
you will be seeing dancers. And they are dressed in many different ways. And a lot of our men here today are wearing ribbon shirts, different colors. And the ribbons that represent some of those colors are free-flowing. We understand from that free-flowing that that's how our understandings are. Everything's in its free form. It gives. The water gives to you for life. The earth gives to you for life. The wind gives to you for life. All these things are here to provide us with life. So these are the things that we remind ourselves. And the different colors represent some of the things that I already had talked about. To review, I guess, the innocence that we had at one time that we were born with. And those things you can still touch sometimes. And they say that's the balance between right and left. You thought I was going to say right and wrong. Right and left. My right side just as well needs to be here as well as my left side. It needs to be together to work together. That's how we look at things. My left side is not wrong. My left side needs to be there to carry. If it's not doing what it has to do, then perhaps we can say that it's not functioning. It's unbalanced. What if you were to maybe have a hangnail on one of your toes? Of course, you would hurt. It would show on your body. You would become unbalanced. If you have an earache, you would become unbalanced. Any small part of your body that becomes infected becomes unbalanced. Today, our societies, we see a lot of that imbalance. There's many things that we don't use. How many here right-handed? Except for a few. How many left-handed? How many here can write both sides? There are a few things that when you can do that, feels real good to you that no matter what position you're in, you're always able to do something. It's not a pain. I remember when I first started, when I was a young man, I thought it was real cool to get the razor blade right about and start shaving right away. Of course, when that happened, I realized I had to shave more than I thought I wanted to. But the other thing is, with this side here, it was really hard to reach this side and go back, and I had to make funny faces and go like that, and twist my chin around and go like that. But later on, I was thinking about what we talked about, balance. So some of those hard to reach parts was easier if I did it with this hand. And I started doing that. But the main thing I understood was that there was pains here, because I never used this other side. And those pains sometimes was unsteady and was shaky. And when you're using a razor real close to your face, you better be steady, because if not, you're going to end up with a nice little cut on your face. So this may be some of the risks of life that sometimes we may encounter when we want to try and reach our other side. It's going to be shaky. It's going to be hard to try again and do this other side that you're not accustomed to. There was times in our development that, you would have been tied with your arm behind your back if you rode left-handed. You know that?
Yep.
That's what would happen to you. There were times that people said that it was just the right way, the right-handed, the right way. But there's some people that couldn't help it, that had to right from the left. And sometimes when we don't understand that and we see people right and left, we may say that's wrong. But of course, if I was to cut off my left arm and put it down over here, it wouldn't function right. Or if you were to cut off your thumb and replace it with this little one here, then your thumb would look very funny hanging over here. Wouldn't be able to function. So you need to understand yourself that you were made in a way that you can function properly and evenly. So all the things that we're going to present to you today is not just a pretty sight, nice colors. And sometimes the colors may not be understood. Does anybody know what this is? You know what this is? Well, this is an instrument that was used. You can tell it's used. The color is very important, and this color could only be reached after you took time and searched yourself where your strongest support system is. And usually that's your spirit side. You know, on TV, you see the warriors getting ready to fight, and they say, first thing that you got to do is a war dance. And the next thing that they do is they put on war paint. Then they holler these war cries. Then they have the war clubs. There's many things that they have to do for themselves. Now, one of the things that we have to prepare for in that ceremony that we've done, we would fast. And we would use certain herbs to drink, but we would not eat. And during that fast, because your body gets rid of all those things that you may have picked up wasn't really absolutely necessary for your body, you become clean. And you start thinking about your situation. And there's many things that will have to guide you. And if you notice in that war paint, sometimes those paints were different colors. Black, white, red. Every one of those colors have something to do with your guidance. Those dances that they've done was some of the dances that we've done this morning. Was part of all that. It was still a Thanksgiving. Had nothing to do with saying, well, I'm going to dance and get my energies all up so I can beat somebody up. Get myself all psyched out so I can kill somebody. No matter what happens, we always encourage our spirit to be strong. For us to see what needs to be done, because we know that war does not benefit anybody. So we would not try to encourage anything like that, because that would be to say we have stepped away from our spirit, stepped away from our physical needs and our emotional needs to understand what we need to do to keep our circle strong. And those colors were only brought to our parts of our body, parts of our face, because those were the parts that we have to maybe use to interact with the other people, to prevent this ultimate part of the war. One of the things that we did, I don't know what I have it here. How many here have seen a lacrosse stick? Well, it's shaped, I don't have one today, but it's shaped with a long extension that it turns. Then in there they have the webbing of the leather holding that part together. The lacrosse stick was a medicine game. And today we hear that it's Canada's national sport. When you need to address something, we talk about and review our life as we had walked on Mother Earth. Remember that pipe we had said the wood part represents the grandmother or the women. On that life, we are starting to turn in that circles. Everything's in a cycle. So that circle is not yet complete because you are still here. And in that life, you will experience and meet many different confrontations of animals, a lot of living beings, other people. So all that crisscrossing and that network, that webwork of that pouch, of that stick represents all those confrontations in life. And you need to look at that. The ball that you used to play with at that time was made from the earth clay. And they covered it with a skin or the hide of some animal. Then they wrapped it tightly with the sinew of the tree. So it was all the elements of the earth that they put together. And that's what they put inside the stick. We call it galas. For that medicine to come back into your possession means that there's something that you have dealt with. That you had dealt with your shortcomings and you had learned to look at life again. So that was the medicine game that they used to play. And of course, as soon as you get the medicine, the first thing you do is you like to pass it on because it felt good to you. But you know that in our circle, we want everybody to feel good. So that was thrown back and forth. And the object of the game was to score 4 times. Why would 4 be important? The 4 represented, remember I talked about this morning, all the 4 colors of people. The 4 colors, it represents the 4 elements of all the creation. So to bring that back together, so that there was an even balance of all those 4 colors. What are those 4 colors? Just say them. Okay. We're not really sure, but it seems to be red, white, black, yellow. Put that back into the circle means that it all has an important duty to do. Remember what the yellow element meant. What relation did it have? What was the yellow element? How did you sing the lullaby? You had to sing with the shoulders back and then bring out the wind. So it had to do with the winds, emotions of life. What about the white? What was his responsibility? Do you remember? Fire. What about the black? What was his responsibility? Water. And the red. What was the red? Earth. So if you brought that all back together in one circle, and you pass it back and forth, it results in what we are doing today, all sitting together in a full circle. That circle does not matter if you're small or tall, what size you are. It's important that the circle keeps on going. There's no breaks in that circle. So all these things we talk about is not necessarily what we might call Indian stuff. It's stuff that came from the earth that we have to learn from. We had talked about later about I am the bear clan. My family is turtle clan. There are some people here that world clan. And we have many clans that came from all over different parts of the earth. As we know that these species are all over the world. To be that clan, you have to understand the teachings of that clan. Like I explained to you about a turtle. You have to know things about a turtle. If you understand things that the turtle can give you and teach you, then maybe perhaps when you see it before, you won't be kicking it and knocking it over and see that the turtle can upright itself. Or maybe you won't be walking down and stamping out a little ant that had nothing to do with getting in your way or disrupting your function. Killing spiders. In many cultures, it means different things to different people. They're all a part of this chain of the whole earth. What if some bigger dinosaur came along and seen some nice young people and just stepped all over them and picked them up and started eating them? Would that be right? Of course not. Every time something happens to us, we're all of a sudden aware that this is not right. Remember that. when your rights are violated, you remind yourselves about the rights that you may violate too with all living things. You are not the supreme being here on this earth. Because men and women, if they were not here on earth, the earth would survive all by itself. We don't need to be here. It's like if you go visit somebody, you visit them at home. You just go right to the door and barge right in. What do? Ring the doorbell. Knock on the door. That means you're asking permission to enter. When you meet a person, that is a confrontation. You need to ask permission for certain things to do with them. So those are very important little things. Some of our teachings that we have that very first thing in the morning, as the sun rises, the women would rise and start cleaning out their home and sweeping out the doorway, and then open the door and sweep everything out right off the doorstep, right towards the east. What they are doing is letting that sun come in and give it a good path. But if you left your pathway dirty, it would be like to offer somebody your home, and it would not be clean for them to come into. That's why there's a lot of little wee teachings that they tell you. If we're all sitting down at a big table of food, you came here with a cold, would you stand there and with openness, sneeze right over top of all that food? You know what they'll do. That's what we're talking about. All of these things you need to understand how your presence is going to be within that structure. No matter where it is, anytime, night or day. It's not just something that you go and say, forgive me. No one can forgive you. You can only forgive yourself. So these are all the teachings that we had gathered. And this is what they call the record stick of the Six Nations Confederacy. Today we are called many things. Iroquois. First of all, when this was formed, we call ourselves Hungwe Hungwe. Hungwe Hungwe means that we are people with a spirit. That's very important to us. But first of all, it's just people. It doesn't say anything else, just people. So with this understanding, we can share that with anybody. We have a gastowi that we wear. And it's made with a circle. To remind us that the way we danced reminds us of the circle. But on that cap also has 4 white segments. And then sometimes they write it down in history books as the 4 white roots of peace. Let me ask you again, what is the color white? What does it represent? Fire. What about black? Water. Red. Earth. What's the next color? Yellow. What does it mean? Wind. The 4 right roots of peace means that those 4 elements are in place. We need to know those. But that's what goes into the construction of our hats. And the eagle feathers that you see worn and carried and put into the feathers and put into the hats means that we would like to have the understanding and the abilities of that eagle. Where does that eagle fly? Does he fly right along here? Where does he fly? Up high. Because if he has to hunt for his survival, he needs to be up high where he can see what's down there. Sometimes we like to be able to bring that strength in and bring that strength of that eagle to be able to fly high so we can see everything that is going on, so we can make a fair and just decision about everything that matters. That's why it's very important for our people to hold that and to speak with that eagle feather. Anything that we use is very important to us. That honor that we have to hold that eagle feather and to use that in our ceremonies is to understand and acknowledge the teachings of that animal. Maybe that honor is spread out in different ways in different cultures. When you're maybe a Boy Scout, Cub Scouts, they give badges. But you have to earn those. You cannot just buy one of those things in a corner store and sew it on or iron it onto your coat. You have to earn that. All of these things have to be earned. And I can understand why today we have a hard time. I feel good wearing this because this was made by a person that sang songs and felt good about what they were making. So the power of that song is in here. And I feel good wearing this. I feel honored to wear this. But a lot of the times the clothes that we wear is mass produced in a factory by somebody that would never know you. Maybe from a totally different country. So what you wear is just something that perhaps is designed to keep you warm, but has no real meaning to you. So all the things we're talking about has to have meaning. Even the clothes we wore. And in our history, we probably would have wore buckskin because of that relationship we wear in honoring the animals that they give us food. Maybe today we should be wearing chicken feathers, eh? We're like Colonel Sanders. To honor him for giving us the fried chicken. It's good to laugh, but it's also good to think. That's what we want to think about. Life is simple, but we make it hard for ourselves. Because we no longer can endure what it is to listen. We no longer can endure what it is that we have to watch, to see, and learn. There's so much that's here that I'm just starting to learn about. So I ask you, because pretty soon our young people are going to be leaders of our nations. And I would hope that they would meet somebody that remembers those four colors, that remembers that that circle does feel good, and that we will seek a way to come together as nations, as people on this planet. That we will come away with a good feeling for each other. I thank you very much today for listening, because you are the most important, crucial elements to our survival. We have not only shared some songs, language, and culture with you, but this was something that is not done enough to understand. We are also suffering at times that we do not have all the grandmothers that we need to teach us. We also don't have all the grandfathers that we need to teach us these things. And as you know, our environment is very hard to make, because our environment is also affected by the TV, Nintendo, VCR, radio, computers. So we have to very hard on ourselves to make that environment possible for us to present to you today that was spoken in that language, that was reacquired. These young men had to do some fasts, and had to do some purification ceremonies, go into a sweat lodge. And we have to understand that there are certain things that we have to need so we can understand our lives. So if we can understand ourselves, then we can share that in a good way with you. To promote that good feeling that we need to understand. We thank you very much for listening, because that means that's going to be a very important step for your future. When you're learning here, where you're here, but also when you're going to meet other people in your path. We hope that path will be good for you. We thank you very much.